Alright, what's going on YouTube? Lix versus Stark in Hidden Cup 4 qualifiers. They haven't posted the map draft, so we don't know exactly what maps they will be playing on. But here are the civilizations. Stark will be playing with Mayans, Aztecs, Lithuanians, Mongols, Berbers, and Portuguese bands, Incas, and Vikings were sniped away from him. Lix is playing Chinese, Malians, Japanese, Persians, Khmer, Franks, and Britons. Britons was the snipe. I'm tempted to believe that based on the bans and snipes, there is likely to be an islands being played, and likely to be a hideout being played, and hideout would be... oops, you can't see the draft, but, well, here it is. So, Hideout is probably the best map for Stark. He's known for being able to play insanely good games in closed maps. Whereas Lix, he's overall a good player. He likes to play open maps and play messy games. I think Lix is the higher seed, somewhere around seed 20 something, and Stark is like 40 something. But this is an absolutely open series and probably one of the more balanced series of the entire tournament. As I said, we won't know the maps up until now, and as you see on my screen over here, these are being cast live on Twitch, and indeed I am doing 5 series today, so that's going to be quite a lot. Obviously, all of them will be uploaded to YouTube once again for, you know, the enjoyment of everybody. So, give me a moment to jump into the game over here, and here we go. So welcome everybody to Arabia. This is going to be game number 1, and we will have Mayans for Stark in purple, and the opposing side will be Chinese by Lix. So 2 of the strongest Arabia civilizations over here. Lix also had Franks available, so that could have been an option here as well, but honestly, I like the versatility of Chinese here a little bit more for Lix. So 2 of the most versatile, most... smooth transition civilizations that are available in this game will be played over here. Both of these are extremely strong Arabia civs, definitely among the S tier civs of this map. With that being said, Stark is going to have a rather forward-ish goal, but it's not impossible to defend. This stone mine over here is quite exposed, which is not ideal for a Mayans player, but it is definitely a vulnerable base for him. The secondary gold isn't great, and this stone is also pretty bad. But overall, if you go like this in front of that gold mine and over here, you should more or less be fine. Woodlands are a bit concerning because neither is this or this a very, very big wood line. So we'll see if Stark is going to have a reliable access to wood. And that could be a problem against a player like Lix, because Lix isn't shying away from potentially tower rushing you if the opportunity is there. And for example, the opportunity would possibly be over here. Now, on the other side, we will have Lix playing as a Chinese with what is an excellent map overall for him. So Huntables at the back and play pretty close to the TC. This can either be pushed in, or you can just send out a couple of Voyagers to take them. Go to the back as well. Woodlines are very nice. Berries are a little bit exposed, but not something that Lix couldn't deal with. And really the only concern is the stone mines for Lix. So, Stark is more of the defensive, late-game grind type of a player that is mostly coming from his arena background, whereas Lix is actually the super aggro, aggressive, towers, massy games type of player over here. Based on the fact that he's playing Chinese, I would think that he's going to play rather standard, at least attempt to do so in the first game over here. So we'll see what Stark is going to do against that. One of the quotes I remember from Project Belgium, I think it was against, or it was about Stark, when I casted Stark in another tournament. I think Project Belgium, who is also a pretty high-level player, said that Stark is like a jelly. You punch him in the middle and he expands to the sides, and I think that's a very, very good comparison. Stark is one of those players that is extremely hard to kill, one of the most resilient players out there. There's a couple of players like that is like, even if you destroy half his starting base, he's going to move over here and still be efficient at counterattacking. So Stark is an extremely dangerous foe to fight against because it's extremely hard to finish him off, and that is one of the reasons why he's so tough to fight against. So he's one of the players that is extremely hard to kill. I think I casted a Stark versus ACCM game at some point last year, which was an arena game. It might not have been ACCM, but someone else. But anyways, there Stark actually held on for something like 2 hours with Britain longbows on arena. Obviously it's arena, so it's a little bit more closed, but Stark is extremely good at defending and just not dying, and that is a massive, massive thing for him. So Lix is going to have to make sure he's able to close out games, because that is going to be the #1 concern when it comes to evaluating who is going to be possibly winning this. Anyways, For now, Lix has pushed in all but one of his deers, and he's got 5 on wood, which with Chinese is completely fine. 4 on wood over here for Stark. So we will see what Stark is up to in a matter of moments. I believe it's not going to be a rush because that would be a little bit too late for this, so it's either men-at-arms or straight archers from him, and Lix will be starting to wall himself off. Both players will have looms, so villagers will not be sniped down by scouts. And in the meanwhile, we will have what appears to be a men-at-arms play from Lix. 5 on wood would be too much for a scout's play, so indeed this looks like we are going to see men-at-arms. Stark will actually see the barracks, so he knows exactly what's what, and let's see if he's gonna try to at least delay that barracks, or just run past it and completely ignore it overall. That being said, Stark is getting a barracks up front himself, and he did land 1 hit on that villager, and he also got 1 hit on his scout as well. Remember that he can run back to the TC and heal his scout up, which is a nice little added benefit. Speaking of Lix, by the way, he does not know that there is actually a hole over here, which could actually cause him to lose a lot of villagers in the future, and we'll see if he's actually going to scout that one. Field times will be pretty close for both players, so it is an equivalent of 22 pop men-at-arms build, but obviously Mayan started 1 extra villager, and the Chinese will pretty much have 2 extra villagers, so at the end, these are 22 pop-up times, but obviously both players will have a stronger eco with that. Can you trigger blue and red colors? Maybe, although I prefer not to, or not. It seems like Capture Age isn't supporting that right now. So we'll have to live with this one. It's a little bit unfortunate. But anyways, that's actually a nice hit on that scout. Those hits are actually pretty important because those scouts could be extremely important when it comes to actual scout fighting. I think the same plan is there for Stark. He could intercept a single militia and cause quite a lot of damage on it. This would be huge because he knows men-at-arms are coming, and if you can deal just 3 or 4 hits on that militia and then run away with your ego, what you're going to achieve is that your ego is still alive, as it looks like Stark is going for some very, very ambitious walls overall. These are straightforward walls, I would say, for him, but he's definitely going for the more extended base layout. Many players wouldn't have walled this aggressively. Many players would have just said, okay, I'm gonna wall here and here. But as I said, Stark is one of the more defensive-oriented players, but he's also one of the players who isn't shying away from walling off 25% of the map. For now, it seems like both players will be using men-at-arms, and here is the problem that you're facing when it comes to actual aggressive walls like this. You will not be able to finish those in time, and there is a possibility that Lix is going to intercept at least 1 villager over here, and he will do so immediately. Stark deleting the wall to come in here with the men-at-arms, but these men-at-arms will be marching in on the other side. Nice reaction so far from our Brazilian player. Very, very nice moves from Lix, harassing that villager a little bit. And the men-at-arms will have to fall back. There is a defensive spearman as well. And oh boy, Stark actually forgot about that villager for a moment, and that's going to cause 1 villager to be killed over here. That was rather sloppy from him. So the Mayan extra villager is now gone for him. And the thing is that as good as men-at-arms are versus scouts, men-at-arms are even better against ego scouts. So the ego actually died pretty easily over here. At the end of the day, this is basically a trade of men-at-arms. But the fact that the ego got killed from Stark actually hurts him quite badly, because once again, if you lose your scout in a field age engagement like this, you are going to be denied of all information, especially against a player like Lix, who likes to play with towers. That could be devastating. So yeah, these extended walls could be very problematic for Stark. However, at this point, Lix is going to be playing pure archers only. Stark is probably going to play archers himself, as he didn't even touch his huntables for the time being. He's gonna have a spearman out to deal with the scout, and it looks like Lix also lost his scout over here, right? Stark killed 4 units, and 3 of those are men-at-arms, whereas yeah, this has to be the scout also going down, because Lix didn't lose a villager, and he lost the 3 men-at-arms, and he had to lose 1 more unit, and that is a scout. However, we also have to keep in mind, as I said, that Lix was able to kill 1 villager, and that's reasonable value for the men-at-arms. And this is the problem that you're facing when it comes to extended walls. These are very, very thin, and if you have far away walls like this with no villagers available to repair close by, obviously here is a villager, but when I'm saying there is no villagers available to repair, I'm saying that this wall is impossible to repair if you have villagers only over here. So these are way too big walls. If you have double layer palisades or house walls behind it, it is completely viable. However, you really have to make sure that the units don't get through those walls, because you can lose a game very, very easily based on that. St4rk is one of the players who won't shy away from doing stone walls either, so that is also a possibility. And right as I said that, he's going to start stonewalling himself. For now, he's just trying to hold out in this one, but I wouldn't even be surprised to see, as he's bringing back the men-at-arms. Obviously, the men-at-arms won't be able to kill the archers, but what they can do is just delay this one a tiny bit until St4rk is able to get a blacksmith out here and some palisades. And in the meanwhile, this is also going to be a little bit exposed region for him. Cancels the stone walls here and adds another layer behind. So it seems like he just wants to pretty much play men-at-arms into eco upgrade, fast castle-ish gameplay over here. And the archers should not have the chance to get through these walls over here. Very, very nice done by St4rk. And as I said, St4rk is known to be an arena player, so he is going to feel most confident when he is able to sit behind 5 layers of stone walls. This is just the way he plays the game. So yeah, these archers, they will try their best to deny the walls. Look at that. Once again, the men-at-arms will just trigger the archers to shoot at them. And that will mean that St4rk is going to be able to get that wall up. And also, I like this defensive tower, to be honest, because otherwise, this stone mine would be exposed. And I think that what St4rk wants to do is go straight plumed archers, which makes quite a lot of sense, because plumed archers isn't really something that Chinese have a good answer for. And St4rk knows exactly the archers will be coming this way. Now we'll see what Lix can do to react to this one, because the thing is that Lix is probably used to playing a lot versus Tim, who is another Chinese player that loves to stonewall. So we will see what the plan is here for Lix. He's gonna have a slightly better castle age time than his opponent does, but as I said, St4rk is gonna be able to drop a TC or a castle right upon hitting castle age. So as far as I know, Lix is the higher seed player in this one, but as you see, this is going to be a rather competitive series over here. Or at least it seems like it's going to be, because St4rk so far hasn't gotten stomped. So eco upgrades are there for both players. At the end of the day, there's a 3 villagers deficit for St4rk and a 30 minutes delay into castle age. But he does have wheelbarrows, so I think that the 2 ecos are pretty comparable here. Lix should have a slightly better eco, but that won't matter that much, to be honest. And we'll again have stone mining and gold mining at the same time. St4rk will just play full unique unit over here right now. And Lix, he is going to keep adding archers, but plumed archers will be able to devastate crossbows early on. Yeah, honestly, that's actually a very, very good debate if St4rk is better than Lix in 1v1. I would say potentially yes. Lix is a beast when it comes to team games and 2v2s. In 1v1, Lix is a little bit weaker as a player. He's still a very good player, but I would say that if it comes to 1v1s, St4rk could be as good as, if not better than Lix, because Lix is a little bit more of a team game player. Anyways, forward siege workshop over here to push this tower down. St4rk doesn't have another stave stone at the back. Actually, he does. So at this point, even if this tower goes down, St4rk is going to be able to potentially drop a castle some round over here that would protect this part of his base. I think this would be the best spot, because that protects the stone mine and protects the gold mine as well. And in the meanwhile, there is another stone here, so even if he loses control of this one temporarily, he can still mine stone for himself. And there is the castle. It looks like he's just going to protect that part of his base and stonewall the rest. The villagers may get picked off over here. That's a little bit sloppy from St4rk, though. Loses one villager very, very easily in here. And the one thing that we have to keep in mind that the military numbers is 13 to 1 right now. So siege workshop, as you kind of have to do that right now. Whereas Lix is prioritizing eco, goes for 2 TCs. No university for ballistics just yet for our Chinese player. And this one, here comes the mangonel. So St4rk is going to have to defend against this one. And the thing is that St4rk is actually very good when it comes to defending against mangonel pushes. Once again, that comes from an arena background of the player. So I also like that he's targeting the crossbows. That's actually very smart. He probably knows that he won't be able to destroy the mangonel. So what he's doing is focusing down the Voyager, focusing down the crossbows, to prevent these crossbows from actually doing a lot of damage once they break inside. Now, Stark has already lost 3 Voyagers, so it will seem more and more like we're going to see Stark with the weaker eco in this game. However, Plumed Archers will start coming in a moment for Stark. First Mangonel is out for him, and he will probably divert these Voyagers to this stone mine over here. Stark coming in here with the Mangonel, gets a shot out, kills the Voyager, that's actually pretty valuable, and gets another shot out. This was a good trade for Stark. This was actually a very, very good trade overall. Traded one Voyager and a Mangonel from Lix to his own Mangonel. And the surprising thing now is that we're not seeing Plumed Archers coming in here for Stark, and that surprises me a tiny bit, and indeed he's waiting for a second Town Center first. Mangonel is coming in to bash through the walls, but I just assume that Lix doesn't know that there is a castle there. Now he sees it. Stark also doesn't have a single upgrade on the Plumed Archers. Now, seeing this and knowing this is Stark, I'm tempted to say that more and more that it may even be possible that Stark wants to imp this one. That would be a crazy claim for most of the players, but Stark, as I said, is an arena player. He's one of those players that is very good at, just sitting back, defending, and then suddenly unleashing a huge army in Imperial. And based on that food count and the fact that he's not making plumes, and the fact that he's not even bothering getting upgrades like fletching or armor upgrades, I kind of feel like he wants to go into Imperial here. He went for all the eco upgrades, but all he's doing to defend his base is just layer after layer of stone walls. Now, the fact that he's going to lose the blacksmith is obviously not ideal, but with these resources, I am tempted to say that he wants to go into Imperial. In fact, if he actually cancels a couple of Voyagers over here, he should be more than alright in terms of food count. The gold count is a little bit more problematic, but obviously when he gets to Imperial, that could still be a huge power spike, and arena players are so good at this. It seems like they're getting annihilated by a Castle Age push, but in reality they do not. Now the question is if those crossbows can pass the castle though, which would be a very, very sloppy move from Stark. I think that he anticipated him having a little more time over here trying to get that defense up, and indeed, the crossbows would just pass the castle. They could have actually done that, because there was no botkin or fletching on this castle, so they could have just ran over here and hit that stone mine. It's actually very lucky for Stark that Lix didn't commit to that, but this way, Stark, as I said, he's just gonna be booming up to Imperial over here. He's 8 Voyagers behind, which is not the end of the world, especially if you consider that he's got Heavy Plow as well for an eco upgrade, so that compensates a tiny bit, and Lix is trying to play aggressive over here, but he just can't, because Stark is playing with all the stone walls possible in the world. He's an arena player, and he's going to turn every map into an arena, basically. Now Lix is heavy on stone here, so you wonder if he wants to castle drop Stark. The problem is that now Stark is going into Imperial soon, but is Stark actually gonna be faster to imp than Lix? That's the question. Because look at this. The Chinese eco and the fact that Lix didn't have to wall that much. In fact, Lix didn't even need to wall at all, to be honest. If Lix just goes for forward castle on this hill and goes up to Imperial, and in fact he's gonna be much faster to Imperial, he's gonna be able to trap down this castle, and Lix can make crossbows on his ranges. Apparently he's also going to switch into cavalry anyways. But in order for Stark to be competitive, he's gonna need the castle to produce Plumed Archers, unless he wants to switch into Ego Warriors, which may still be a possibility, but I feel like Stark is doing the good old-fashioned boom into GG build order right now, because this is getting more and more ridiculous. Like, he's getting out-boomed. As I said, Stark is extremely hard to finish off though, so even if it seems like Lix is almost killing him in early Imperial, that may still not be the case. So now Stark is about to go up into Imperial as well. So Lix is beating him to Imp. We will see what Stark can do to hold off that early Imperial push. If you're Lix right now and you know that you're beating your opponent to Imperial, you're gonna make a castle over here and start trapping this one down, and that's gonna make life very hard for Stark. Stark going up to Imp, and honestly, I really like Lix's build order indeed myself. He also collected 2 relics, but it's about the fact that he realized that he's not gonna get pushed by Stark, so he might as well just, focus on his eco as well, and focus on getting up to Imperial a little faster than the opponent, and I think that was the plan. If you look at the DC idle time, he has double the DC idle time as Stark. I believe that he may have intentionally idled his DC a tiny bit, so that he's able to pile up the food that he needs for Imperial. And now Stark gets out one Plumed Archer. That is not necessarily convincing me right now. So this is indeed a heal advantage as well for Lix, and a solid 2 minutes advantage into Imp. I don't have exact numbers, but 2 minutes into Imp should be 3 or 4 traps very easily for Lix, and there is a Barracks for Stark. That could still be for just pure requirement for archer range, and he wants Thumb Ring. And I think that this Plumed Archer is only scouting or maybe baiting his opponent. That could also be a thing. He went for Fletching, but that's the only upgrade that he's getting, and as I said, I mean, Stark's defense would have been nice if he just goes for Stone Walls and then starts going for Plumed Archers, but no, it's going to be Barracks. I was thinking that Eldorado Eagles could be something to consider, but Chinese do have Cavalier. However, they do not have Paladin, and Lix also doesn't have a lot of upgrades. And as I said, Eldorado Eagles are very scary. Eldorado Eagles actually trade rather cost efficiently against Cavalier. They die to Paladin, they even die to Cavalier, but they actually take rather cost efficient engagements. The condition, however, is that you need Eldorado. So you need to get that castle alive until you actually get that tech. Looking at the resources of Stark, I think he's gonna go for Eldorado right as he reaches Imperial. And there's another castle, so he may know already that he's going to lose one of those castles. I think he just pulls a couple of villagers from stone and keeps repairing that. And that's Elite Eagle. Eldorado is coming, but Eldorado is slow upgrade. I don't understand what Stark is doing. If you want to play Eldorado, why are you making another castle? Just pull... Like, I mean, it's 2 traps with hill advantage, but you could just pull 20 villas to repair this one. Or why did you even start making Eldorado on this castle and there is already a whole... Oh, Stark! You played 20 minutes to die like this? Oh, man. What on the earth was this? I mean, as I said, skill-wise, Stark should be there, but his decision-making here was, subpar at best, let's say. So, that's a little bit disappointing for the first game. I mean, if he goes Plumed Archers, it would have worked fine. If he starts adding Egos earlier, that also would have worked fine. If he starts repairing that castle, that could have worked. There could have been so many things being done, but, I mean, this was everything but, you know, like, he was way too passive. And even on Arena, this is overly passive. This is like, he was playing 3DC Boom on an absolutely open map. Even on a closed map, that's a little too greedy. And we have seen him getting punished for that pretty badly. Anyways, we will be going into game number 2 over here with Lix having a pretty easy game number 1. Stark is gonna have to change his mindset a little bit for this game because, as I said, especially Lix. Lix isn't shying away from being aggressive. You get the draft link available? Yes, I do. I do not have the map draft though. So... can you check Discord, Bielo? I actually messaged it to you over there. So, yeah, we have the draft link. And what I wanted to do is... Give me a moment, because we do some overlay adjustments over here. Okay. Like that. I don't know that you are not seeing it right now, but you will see that in a moment. So something like that. And lastly, Yeah, exactly. All right, so now you should be able to see it. Thank you so much, Nerfox, for getting this nice little overlay set up for us. So here it is. These are the matches of today in a nice and beautiful fashion. So Lix versus Stark, followed by Zupi versus Classic Pro, Nili versus Kaposh, Slam versus Jack, and God of the Godless versus Fire is the schedule for today. Anyways, let's take a look at the draft. We will have Chinese gone for Lix and Mayans gone for Stark. And now the real question is if they actually posted the map draft and they didn't. Robo's gonna be angry and them. I will also be angry. Because that will be pretty important for casting purposes. Alright, so let's see if we have game number 2 up over here. Stark versus Lix. As I said, I feel like Stark has the chance to win this game, but if he just plays like the way he did, that's not gonna be sufficient. That is way too greedy, especially against an aggressive player like his opponent. And we have Islands, so Stark's first home map is Islands, which makes some sense, believe it or not. Mainly because it's not like Lix is a great Islands player. If you remember 2v2 World Cup, what did Lix do on Islands? Lix went for a landing, and that's exactly what we're going to see over here, potentially as well. Lix is playing Japanese, so he's probably going to try playing some water, but I would potentially put Stark ahead of Lix in just pure water skills. The real question is if Lix is landing, can his landing do enough damage to Stark? Because I think when you're up against Lix, you can never say that it is impossible that he's going to land you. On the north, we'll have Stark playing in blue. Down south, we'll have Lix playing in red. We have a Japanese versus Portuguese civilization matchup over here. And indeed, Lix didn't play a landing save, although theoretically Japanese can do that very, very easily. So it is absolutely possible that Lix will still do a landing himself, and also the fact that he's going to have stronger fishing ships is going to be very helpful. Now, taking a look at Lix's map, I massively dislike this gold mine. This is absolutely the worst gold mine generation that you can get on islands. Exposed from two sides on a narrow land, this is going to be a massive concern for Lix in the long run. So his map isn't really well set up for late game. The stone mine is also a little bit exposed. Woodlines could also be harassed by water galleys later on, so Lix's map is actually pretty awful here. Stark's gold mines are much better. This is exposed to water aggression from one side, but it's the back side of Stark's island, so it's not as bad as Lix's other gold mine. The stone isn't great though, but the berries are nice, which is very helpful at the beginning. Sometimes you get your berries spawn close to the water, and that could be denied by sometimes even fire galleys, and that is often annoying for the players in Feudal. So, we are gonna have Portuguese for Stark. I feel like if you're playing Japanese, you're going to open fire galleys, whereas Portuguese could think about going for side dog galley play, but I do favor Portuguese by a massive margin on water overall. Japanese are nice, especially because of the fishing health on the fishing ships and also the faster working fishing ships, but other than that, they don't have anything special going for them, to be honest, on water. So, as opposed to Portuguese that have the cheaper gold cost on their units, Portuguese that have higher health on their combat ships, it is just overall a little bit stronger on water, I would say, than Japanese, especially when it comes to actual fights. It looks like Stark is going to push in Deer for himself, and speaking of Stark, it theoretically is possible for Stark to fast castle this one. Normally I would say it is an absolutely suicidal idea to fast castle a map like this, especially against Lix who could land you. However, we are talking about Stark, and previous games, Stark pretty much went for free TC booming into Imperial and then GG, so you never know what Stark has on his mind. Indeed, I forgot about the fact that the Japanese can have a nice little boost of the cheaper lumber camp at the beginning, and that helps you drop your dock a little bit earlier. And I also hit my microphone with my elbow, so hopefully you haven't gotten deaf from that. Anyways, we have a sort of a back dock over here for Lix, which is a surprising turn of events. I have to say that he is very lucky with the fish generation. Like, For a dog that is positioned in such a narrow water area, 3 deep fish right next to your dock is like jackpot. This is a very, very lucky dock spot right now for Lix. He even has another shorefish close to you. Like, this is a dream dock, I have to say. 3 deep fish very close, 2 shorefish very close. That's absolutely amazing for Lix. st4rk is going for what is a side dock play. And that means that we are probably going to have galleys over here from our Brazilian player, and I have no idea what Lix is going to do. But honestly, with such back docks, he might be thinking about fast castling this himself. Now, once again, as I said, I feel like on islands, in 1v1, fast castle is sort of suicidal. However, think about the fact that he's up against st4rk, and maybe he thinks, hey, in the previous game, st4rk just went for basically 3TC booming castle age, stone walls, went very, very defensive and late game. Maybe Lix thinks that his opponent is going to do the same thing over here. And that means that he's going to try to fast castle this, or who am I? Why would Lix ever try to fast castle? He's going to try and land. It's a sneaky landing, by the way, with a scout and a villager. So it's not going to be for towers. st4rk is going to play galleys in this one most likely because he's going up. And the thing is that this is pretty unlucky for st4rk because Lix is going to be able to land at the part of the island where st4rk isn't really going to have eyes on early on. And the galleys will not be able to find this one either in time. So the landing will most likely be successful, and if Lix plays this smart, he lands over here. Because if you are st4rk, you're looking at the front of your island for a landing. Let's take a look at st4rk's scouting. That's actually going to be an interesting question. Oh, st4rk might get lucky, because he's got some unscouted parts of his island, and he may just want to scout them and accidentally bump into that landing. However, he's going to scout at this part first. So, see, he scouts this, we'll go back over here, and then go down over here. Or first, check it out over here. Lix, look at Lix! This is not a place where st4rk would ever expect a landing, though. Like, that's for sure. There's no way st4rk's expect a landing over there. The question is, if st4rk is going to see that, and the answer is no. In Feudo, you're gonna have a slightly more building line of sight, though, and... Sneaky, sneaky. That's gonna be probably a man-at-arms landing in this case. Normally, I'm not a fan of building your barracks on the opponent's island, and look at that. Lix is prepared for a potential counter landing from st4rk, so he's gonna vow himself up here, and so far, st4rk has no idea, and he's not even going to look for this. And remember that we're playing on the newest patch, so polysite scanning is no longer a thing, right? And the uptime for Lix was pretty comparable to st4rk's uptime, so st4rk probably will believe that Lix is going for galleys himself, potentially. Let's see if st4rk is going to find that. I think he now knows. I don't know how he actually had the idea to scout over here, but he may intercept the villager. There is a spearman out here already, and that could be a spear and skirm push in that case from Lix, which could make sense because hacking into man-at-arms takes quite a lot of time. But st4rk already losing one of his wood lines, and Lix could potentially get a tower up here somewhere to deny that wood line. And we will have archers, and here's the thing, st4rk doesn't have a single unit that can defend against this one right now. Not a single unit. And in the meanwhile, on water, is he getting any sort of advantage? No, because he's looking for his opponent's dock still. He has no idea where Lix's dock is at, and by the time he finds it, Lix already has a very, very happy fishing operation over here, and it's also pretty hard to kill those fishing ships. So that's the other thing. It's not like st4rk is just going to move in and snipe 2 fishing ships easily. That's just not going to be a thing. And look at Lix. He's already going for the tower over here. Now st4rk could just pull 3 villagers and take that down, or just make a counter tower here. st4rk is gonna have to roll around his villagers, and that's some nice defense, by the way, because this transport is not something that you will be able to use to just get through the walls easily. And st4rk takes down the galley over here. This tower from Lix isn't going up either. I feel like this is a push that is destined to die from Lix eventually. Because as much, or as scary as it looks like, this tower isn't going up. This army here isn't accomplishing much, to be honest. Now, st4rk could just pull back to this wood line. Truth being told, st4rk doesn't have stone available, which means that another counter tower is impossible for him. But he knows where Lix's Fush Eco is, and he could just send galleys, and galleys will be able to snipe down the fishing ships pretty easily. Now Lix transitions into fire galley play though, and remember that Stark is distracted. In fact, he's not even noticing that there's an archer shooting at these voyagers, and even though it's not killing a lot, it is forcing an awful lot of idle time. We're talking about 16 minutes compared to 6 minutes of idle time. So, really, just the sheer fact that this single archer is causing so much chaos has hurt so much. And obviously, Stark would need to invest into barracks and archer range to make just one skirm. And look at Lix. He's gonna make another wood line, and he knows that Stark isn't willing to commit to any land unit. That's brutal. One scout and one archer is able to deny this wood line, and the tower here is going to be sufficient for Lix, unless Stark pulls a Voyager to take it down, but there is an archer, so that's not gonna be that easy. And remember what I said, Stark is unable to access stone right now, because that stone is out there, and he doesn't have military. He's got one scout, which could be able to kill like one archer, but when you have a scout and an archer over here from Lix, oh, Lix is punishing Stark so hard over here with this landing. This is crazy. This is like actual crazy from Lix. I think that he's getting insane value out of just a couple of military units. He's at 9 military, out of that 4 is fire galleys. He's got 3 archers, 1 spearman, and 1 scout. But he's getting massive value from those, and look at how Stark has to reposition his wood lines. He already lost 2 Voyagers, and at the end of the day, Lix is still sitting on 5 fishing ships with Japanese fishing ship speed bonus, or well, not speed bonus, but gather rate bonus. Fire galleys will be coming in here. Stark, however, was sitting on 7 fishing ships. In fact, it's 9. So he realized that Lix isn't really pushing him on water and just went for the fish boom. He could lose it though. There's only 2 galleys on the field for Stark. One of them is over here, one of them is over here. And this may actually get intercepted by a fire galley. It's also very low HP. So as much as Stark was able to capitalize on the fishing eco, he could potentially lose that very soon. Castle Age times will be pretty identical, but one thing that we have to consider is that once Castle Age kicks in, indeed, we could see a knight coming in here from Lix. Nice move to bait that galley into the tower fire once again. So, right now, Lix is able to start hitting the fishing eco of his opponent. Eco count is still pretty close over 1. Stark still has ships on the field, however, the main concern that he has right now is that he's got 0 chance of influencing the opponent's eco here, and soon this is going to turn into a knight and a siege push most likely. And you can see that Stark's eco is everything but efficient. A lot of the Voyagers are also low HP, so that could be concerning in case like a knight shows up or potentially mangonels show up in this one. And really, the only thing that is keeping Stark in this game right now is that his fishing eco is actually superior to Lix's fishing eco. In fact, Lix is now running out of deep fish, so he's gonna have to place a dock over here for some more fishing. But yeah, Stark is only able to access 1 woodland over here, and look at Lix! He's bringing the archers over here as well. Oh, that's so good. Now, he's not gonna be able to hit this wood line immediately, unless he walks all the way around, which may be doable. He's trying to get through here. But if he reaches Castle Age, he could just get Botkin for himself, or potentially Crossbowman, whichever works nicely. I think Crossbow here is a little bit better choice, and that would deny that wood line once again. There's a stable coming in here from Stark to defend, but obviously Lix has a +1 defense on those guys. Lix has bloodlines on those guys. Lix also has horse color, so his farming eco is actually pretty good over here. Stark is playing full fishing eco though, and that's something that's worth keeping in mind. Aggressive siege workshop coming in here, and look at this, there is nowhere to go for Stark. That's the problem that he's facing, and the War Galley is going to kick in very soon for Lix. And Stark is getting beaten pretty hard into Castle Age over here. War Galley is going to be in by the time he's up to Castle, and that is huge, because the thing is that fire ships will melt fire galleys, and they will also be able to sink fishing ships pretty fast. So as I said, the entire food eco of Stark is on water. If he loses water here, even just temporarily, he could be losing his fishing eco. There could be a big demo shot from Stark over here. Lix, look at that, splitting away the ships, and he's going to send in just 1 fire ship to kill the fish here. Very smart. He's chasing this army down with 2 fire ships, but he's also sinking the fishing eco, and as I said, Stark has 0 farmers. Battering ram on the way. You could make a case for knocking down that market for the sake of being able to deny your opponent from being able to just balance his eco. and it's a 6 Vultures lead now for Stark and for Lix, and the Knight shows up over here. The wall was broken through, and as I said, a lot of these Vultures are very weak. Stark is doing double stable Knights, but does that matter in this situation? Look at this eco. Look at this eco here, and the thing is, as I said, many of these Vultures are weak, so it really is a matter of just a couple of Knights could do so much damage. Now, this is a nice defense here from Stark, but you also have to consider that he's now behind by 12 Vultures, and there's going to be a Monastery coming in here rather soon. The Vulture needs to survive because the transport ship was killed, so that's something that you have to kind of keep in mind, and Monastery will be on the way. This is also Japanese Spearman over here, so Stark is going to try and defend with Knights, and he's going to take down the Ram over here. However, Japanese Spearman will be available for Lix over here, and he's massing Knights too. So even the attack rate is going to be better on those, and if you look at the eco upgrades, it's much better, and the consistency of the food income is going to be troublesome, I would say, for Stark, because he only has 5 on food. Stark with a transport ship himself, he wants to counterland, but look at Lix. He's smart and he knows that the counterlanding was a possibility, and he was prepared for this. Now, there is an overchop here, potentially, or maybe it's just a Vulture that is walking all the way around, but there is an overchop here, so Stark could potentially punish Lix over here with a counter landing. However, Lix is prepared for this in theory, and I think he's going to soon suspect that the Knights disappeared from the field, and that means that there is going to be a counter landing on the way. 5 Knights coming in here, and now Lix is going to have to go for a couple of demos to sink this fleet. The Knights will show up, and I think the lucky thing for Lix here is that the overchop is on the south, and the Knights will show up on the north, so he's going to have time to spot those Knights before they can actually start doing damage. Over here, Knights bashing their way through the walls here, and there is a Monastery out for Stark, but he doesn't have a Siege Workshop right now against the Mangonels, and look at this! He's running to the other gold mine over here. There is a fire ship over here, being very annoying. This Vulture randomly runs through the tower fire over there, and if just one Knight goes in here for the other gold mine, that would be a disaster, and Lix is going to know because he sees the Vultures trying to wall this up, so he knows that his opponent wants to do something here on this side. The Knights show up. Lix has an overchop! Lix! The disaster! The disaster for Lix. His game plan was genius, but just a small thing like this can actually completely devastate him. He has a 16 Vultures lead, but this is what I was referring to. If you make your barracks on the front, you are going to have some sort of defense back at home. There is absolutely nothing. As much as Lix was able to damage Stark's eco, just because Stark had 0 defensive buildings, this is going to be possible as well for Stark. He's going to try to get a Monastery out. At least Lix has his gold mine covered with a TC, so it's not that bad, but from a great position, now Lix is only, let's say, in a good position. That being said, Stark is down to 39 Vultures and Lix is still at 52, and more importantly, Stark is busy not dying back at home, and that means that he's not going to look at his Knights until now. He's going to run past the TC. Lix trying to get the Monastery or a Monk out here, but that's going to be an awful lot of TC or Villager idle time overall for Lix. Luckily for him, his opponent doesn't have armor upgrades on those Knights, so the TC fire is actually going to clean up the Knights pretty easily, whereas for Lix, he's able to hit the wood line. There's 2 conversions from Stark, but now Lix is just using those Knights as kamikaze units right now. A lot of these Vultures are very low in HP, so really, just a couple of Knights can devastate the eco of Stark. Lix has an awful lot of idle time himself, but at the end of the day, he cleans up the Knights on the north. There is 2 more Knights on the south. If Lix revos himself here at home, he's gonna be safe and he will keep on pushing. But as I said, from a great position he was in, he's now only in an okay position. Maybe it's something that we can call a good position, but he definitely didn't expect the Knights to land him. Well, he expected initially in Feudal Age that he's gonna face a counter landing, as he's going heavy on stone right now. But it seems like he's just completely ignoring the fact that, for example, there is a hole over here, there's a hole over here, and there's a hole over here. And another counter landing from Stark could be a case. It looks like we're gonna have some archers mixed in here from Lix to snipe down monks. That was actually very nicely done. And there's a spearman chilling over here. Monks coming in here for Lix. Takes down 1 knight and gets a conversion in. Counter conversion is there. Stark is actually very good when it comes to monk micro. But did I mention that Stark lost his TC? Because he did. Stark actually lost his only existing town center. And yeah, Lix only has 2 fire ships. Lix, in fact, lost all his docks, all his fishing eco. But does that matter when you have actually killed the opponent's TC? The market is gonna go down, and Stark, I think what Stark wants to do is just drop a castle to defend himself. And at this very moment, funnily enough, do you know where the best spot for a new TC would be for Stark? Here. This is a TC that Lix would not be able to hit at all. Atonement coming in here for Lix, and now Stark is just going to add additional TCs at the back side of his island for some additional wood control. Remember that Lix still has a 16 villagers lead, so that's something that we have to keep in mind. It's a much more consistent food income as well for him. The fishing ships will have to venture further and further away for Lix. And oh, Lix could intercept the transport. That could be huge. This could be enormous. Stark is losing that transport rapidly, and that's not something that you want to see. Here comes the Mangonel. Mangonel could get a shot out on the monks, and so he does. And 2 conversions as well for Lix. Stark didn't notice the monks in time, and he just ran into them. There was 2 knights going down to the conversions, and also the monks went down to the Mangonel fire. Stark still just 135 stones, so it's very, very far away from a castle right now. And Stark apparently just taps out. Interesting moment. Maybe he just saw this army and he said, okay, whatever, it's done. But Lix, having only 1 fire ship remaining in the middle of Castle Age, he actually edges this one out. Super aggressive landing over here, and this was almost crystal clean as well from Lix. That's the thing. That at the end of the day, if you think about that, Lix, if there wasn't that landing from Stark, this would have been a very, very easy stomp overall. So that is something that is worth considering. Alright, so with that, that's a 2-0 already after just 1 hour of game time. So things are getting more and more interesting over here, because I actually estimated 2 hours for each series. And I'm not 100% sure what exactly we are going to do if the series end faster, because I don't think we'll have a lot of time to go through an entire series. However, I don't really want a lot of downtime either, so we'll have to figure out what we do in these downtimes. Because, as I said, I will try to cast all the qualifiers myself as entire series, so I wouldn't really like jumping into another series at game number 3 and say, hey, I don't know, it's 2-0 for someone if we're going to start in game number 3, because that would kind of feel bad, because, as I said, I want to cast entire series so that they're uploaded to YouTube and not individual games. So, yes, Zupi versus Classic Pro will be the game that is following. That's going to start in approximately an hour. And it looks like we are going to play Hideout, and with Stark on the board, it is actually very possible that Hideout is going to be a long game. We will jump into the next game over here. No surprise about Hideout being the map for Stark, to be honest. He likes to play close maps, and it looks like we're going to have Lix playing as Khmer, and we do have a pause here at the beginning, it seems like, or not. So Lix is playing Khmer in blue, and Stark is going to be playing Aztecs in purple. Everybody knows what's going to happen. It's going to be probably a Monk and Siege Rush by Stark, something that he's actually very, very good with. Once again, the arena background could be something that we can see here. He tried a greedy 3TC boom play on Arabia, didn't work out. He tried a standard play on Islands, didn't work out. So we are yet to see an aggressive play from him. And the question is, how is Lix going to play this one? Because with Khmer, it's always tempting to just go and boom. However, Stark is a good enough player to punish that. So we'll see what Lix has on his mind, but I feel like Lix can just go fast castle boom over here, because especially in Hideout with these very, very weak polycide walls, it's going to be super easy for Stark to just go for Mangonels and Monks over here, and we know how much Stark loves to do that. He's a true arena clown, and that's going to show in the push that he's going to make. Theoretically, he could do something else as well, but I would be massively surprised if this was not a Monk and Siege push with Aztecs. So Probably one of the reasons why he banned Britons overall, or at least he didn't ban Britons, he sniped Britons, but probably the main reason behind that is because he wanted to make sure that he's not up against an archer civ, because Britons is one of the civs that can defend very, very nicely against a monk and siege push with the extra range on their crossbows. So it makes sense for Stark to snipe Britons overall, and his opponent is going to be up with Khmer. So if you are Lix, you will seriously consider a fast castle into a castle drop inside your base, because that would secure a lot of ground for you. So a castle somewhere around over here, for example, or over here, would give you a lot of defensive potential overall. But the other option is that you're gonna go for scouts and light calves early on. Khmer farming eco is pretty strong, so you will be able to afford light calves without any major problems, and potentially even sustain a 2, maybe even 3 TC boom in the long run. And the light calves would be allowing you to pick off monks and mangonels at relative ease, I would say. So here come the boar first for Lix, and in the meanwhile, on the other side, we'll have Stark pushing deer. So the deer is always spawning on the outside on this map. That's something that you have to keep in mind. Other than that, there isn't really much worth noting about this map. It's relatively standard hideout. Interesting to see that Stark is actually doing sort of secondary walls over here with the houses, but they're very, very small walls. So it kind of feels like if he gets pushed through the walls, he's not trying to re-wall these walls or wall behind them. He just wants to add a secondary layer of walls and use this TC as a defensive building. So the other thing that I wanted to explain or show is that now the map is very, very consistent in terms of generation. It's always a T-shaped wood line, and the players have the narrow part of the wood line in between them all the time. So that wasn't really the case in previous hideout scripts, not just in Hidden Cup, but also other tournaments as well. So now it's a lot more consistent as well. And the relic spawns are also fixed, which means that we have one relic in each corner, and the final relic is actually very, very close to Stark's walls, which with Aztecs is actually a nice little advantage as well for him. So what is Lix up to? His 4 on wood adds a farm, so this is definitely a fast castle play from him. Weakens the boar with the TC. That was a very, very nice lure from him. Perfect timing as well overall. 3 golds instead of 2 compared to Leather Hideout. That is correct. That is absolutely correct. In fact, I would put it in a different way, because 3 golds is the standard on Hideout, and the ranked map pool Hideout changed it. So it's not like this script is different from the ranked map pool one. This is the traditional Hideout script. On traditional Hideout, you always had 3 gold deposits for each player close to his base. It's 5 plus 4 plus 4. At some point, it even used to be 7 tiles plus 4 plus 4. And there is 1 neutral gold for each player with 3 tiles each. By the way, both of those neutral golds are spawning closer to Lix, which is somewhat unfortunate. And there seems to be more neutral gold on this map, interestingly. So back in the days, Hideout looked like, as I said, 5 or 7 plus 4 tiles of gold for each player. And then there was 1 neutral gold of 3 tiles each. They changed it with 2 neutral golds for each player in this one. And in ranked map pool, you have just 2 gold deposits, presumably to make the games go faster a little bit, because the thing is that Hideout has the tendency of stalling out because of the vulnerability of the sides, and that means that it could result in very, very long games, and I believe that devs had an intention of making sure that Hideout games don't drag out to 5 hours. So they lowered the amount of gold available on the map. So that is my theory behind the ranked map pool Hideout having less gold than actual tournament script hideouts. But what we are seeing here in terms of gold amount is actually the standard in tournaments for years now. Anyways, so we will have a 23 plus 0 here, I believe, from Lix, who is not gonna go for a defensive castle. So this seems like it's just gonna be pure vanilla fast castle into potentially free TC boom. And the thing is that is just not gonna work out well overall if you think about that. So at the end of the day, with 3TC boom, like, the thing is that if you think it over, he didn't make a single building. He could still make a stable, but I would okay, there is the stable. For a moment, I thought he's gonna go for 3TC boom. If he drops a stable, that's fine. He's a little bit low on wood, so this is not gonna be a 3TC boom. Probably just 2 TCs and the stable. And in the meanwhile, market blacksmith up for Stark, going for what is apparently a 24 plus 2 over here. Seems like he's a little bit low on food though, but he still has 2 geese left over here. Anyways, Lix going up to castle already, and in fact he's already halfway up by the time Stark clicks up, and here come the scouts. And in the meanwhile, Stark is going to, I think that he didn't have to use the market, right? We can actually check it out within Capture Age if Capture Age reacts to my clicks, which it refuses to do, so we're not going to be able to check out market usage here. In fact, yeah, you should be able to check out market usage in Capture Age if I'm alright. So the thing is that Monk and Siege here at the start isn't really going to work out well for Stark because there is light calves, and he probably knows that. So this is probably going to be Pikes, Monk, and Siege mainly. So with Pikeman, the light cavalry isn't really going to be able to snipe down the mangonels. So you open Pike and Siege, and then you transition into Monks eventually. Probably Redemption as well, and there's an Eagle interestingly coming in here for Stark. Don't tell me that he's not going to Monk push here. If he just sits back and plays 3TC boom, I'm going to scream. Because that would be kind of bad against the Khmer overall. And remember how much he got punished in game number 1 for being passive? That's the same thing that's gonna happen over here as well. So if he just goes for a boom, he's gonna get punished because Lix is just going to outboom him. Lix is already doing TC number 2 and a monastery, so Lix is prepared for a push here. And it seems like it's Eagles, Monks, and Stark likes to play this as arena, it seems like. He's just gonna go for Relic Collection, which could be viable for him. He's got 1 relic over here, 1 relic over here, and 1 over here. So he could be easily picking up 3 relics. But it seems like he's not really going to go for a Castle Age push. This is tricky. Like, theoretically, at this point, Stark is probably going to be able to keep up with the eco of the opponent, but that is debatable in the long run, because you already see that there is a 2 villagers difference in the favor of Lix, and there is also the Khmer farming eco, which, by the way, is actually comparable to the Aztec farming eco. And one thing that Stark was able to accomplish with Aztecs is that Lix had to make a stable, had to make a monastery as well, potentially, so he kind of had to preemptively react to a potential Monk and Siege push. Alright, Spearmen are coming out, and it looks like Stark is playing 1 TC. He could potentially afford a second one, but he isn't doing it, which makes me wonder if we are actually going to see another clown strategy, which would pretty much be a fast Imperial here at this point. Like, Relic Collection, Pikes, and there is the second TC for Stark. In this case, I just don't understand what he's planning to do. Are you trying to outboom Khmer here? You're not going to, so that's not really going to be the case. For a moment, I thought he wants something like, okay, let's do Pikeman, and let's do Fast Imperial and do something like, okay, Pikeman, Castle Drop, Trebs. So if he's playing Boom once again, I don't know what the idea is going to be overall. There's Sensitive for him, so those monks will be relatively sturdy, but once again, this is just for Relic Collection at this very moment. And Lix is also picking up relics himself, so at best this is gonna be 3-2 in terms of relic counts in the favor of Stark. And behind this one, he's already 5 Voyagers behind, and he will just keep falling behind more and more, because his opponent is already on 3 TCs, even though Lix has 2 TCs idle. So, we are gonna have a a couple of scouts over here, and it looks like the knight was killed by the spearman. And as I said, Stark will likely be sitting on 3 relics, even though Lix will have a couple of words to say about that, and Lix might be able to yoink that relic, which would once again be an absolute disaster for Stark. Scouts trying to poke down the monk, and it was somewhat unsuccessful. This is going to be a race for the relic, and it seems like Stark is going to realize that, hey, my opponent is likely going for that relic himself, and he's going to dispatch a couple of eagles that will just miss the monk. They might have seen it, yeah, they saw it for a moment, but we'll see if Stark actually was able to react to that, because I'm not 100% sure. And it looks like we're going to have a barracks here from Lix, which could be potentially for Pike and Siege push himself. Now it's 3 TCs for Stark as well, 8 villagers deficit right now for him. Lix picks up the relic, and it seems like he's missing out on that monk once again. He's looking for the relics right now in the corner, and to answer that question in the chat, he doesn't necessarily have to see the relic, because the relic positions on these map scripts are preset, so you know that there is one relic in each corner. And currently, he's looking for it everywhere, but he just missed that monk completely. Like, he's trying to counterattack with the eagles, but that's not doing a lot. And in the meanwhile, as I said, it's actually longswords push. Interesting, so he's expecting an eagle play eventually from Stark, and Khmer longswords. Not necessarily a fan of that, to be honest, because Aztecs can have multiple ways of being able to react to that, and eagles actually are successful bashing their way in here. Lix has 2 knights, so he's gonna be able to defend against this one. And look at Lix, or look at Stark. He's just chasing a relic here. I think he's trying to scout every tile on this map for a relic, but he's just basically missing this relic by a couple tiles, and the monk is doing the biggest relic haste of the history. So yeah, a couple of knights should be able to clean this one up over here, right? Yeah, they will be able to, most likely. Anyways, University for Stark, and I think he wants to imp this one now with the eco that he has. We'll see if this longsword push is going to materialize. There's a siege workshop. I thought that it was University, but no, that's a siege workshop. That can actually be pretty helpful, and I wonder if Stark knows about this one. He does not, and remember, palisade scanning has been removed, so he has no means of telling that there is actually a push coming his way right now. He wants to imp this one, and truth be told, the ecos are absolutely the same. Lix is not close to Imperial, Stark is. Lix had to invest a little bit more though. Like, Lix could be imping himself if he didn't go for longsword tech, if you think about that overall. So he could also be imping by now. Those will also be Khmer Scorpions with 8 range. And now Starks is gonna have to... Oh, Lix... Stark is gonna deny those barracks. I don't think that Stark expected this push at all. And palisade gates go down very, very rapidly. Stark is gonna have to revolve behind this one, but the Scorpions will make life much, much harder. And the longswords are already flooding in here. So what Stark could do is potentially get a couple of monks, because against early longswords, monks are actually somewhat reasonable. But, oh man, Stark is on the way to Imperial, but are we going to see another Imperial GG? There is a Mangonel inside here. But I think the most ideal spot to unpop that Mangonel would be to delete this house and unpop it on that side. As right now it looks like DC is trying to help the Mangonel. The Mangonel goes down pretty rapidly over here though. And that siege workshop is also pretty close to going down. Stark trying to tech into men-at-arms himself. And we are also going to have another siege workshop being built at the back of his base. The good news for Stark is that his eco isn't directly exposed to this push completely. So if you take a look at this, it seems scary, but at least the thesis will protect him for a moment. He could get a couple of eagles in, or could get a couple of swordsmen. Eagles could try sniping the Scorpions. Obviously, this is not ideal for him by any means. However, the longswords here aren't necessarily enough to decide this engagement, and if there's a Mangonel coming from Stark, he's gonna be able to hold this one for the time being, and he's getting close to Imperial. Whereas Lix isn't. But that's so good from Lix once again. He's everywhere on this map, and just a single knight could be bashing down so many villagers. There's a spearman here that is just chilling. And, like, if that spearman was just here, he would be able to kill that single knight, but st4rk is too busy defending against this push over here. Oh, man. Now, finally, the spearman comes in here, but that's at the cost of, like, 5, 6, 7 villagers killed already. That being said, st4rk is still holding this, and remember what I said at the beginning of this series. He is extremely good at defending and surviving until his power spike comes in. Now, this is where the scary part begins, because the flood of light cavalry will soon occur for Lix. And look at that, even the spearman goes down. That was a beautiful micro from Lix, and the spearman is still doing damage. Oh my goodness, that's gonna be like 10 villagers lost from st4rk, and he's just too busy to notice that. That's the thing. He's microing his mangonels, he's microing his monks over here, and he's unable to notice the fact that he's going to lose 10 villagers on that stone mine, and it hurts so badly because it delays his progress towards a potential castle, and even more so, puts his eco into a very rough spot. Now it's block printing for the monks, but I feel like once again st4rk to play this one extremely greedily, and especially against a player like Lix, who is known for being very aggressive. You can't just play this greedy, because you are just gonna get stomped by the opponent's Castle Age push here. And as I said, when the light cap shows up for Lix, this game is over, because the light cap will just run past the TCs and hit the wood line, for example. Oh man, I don't know what st4rk was thinking, but Lix wouldn't have been the only player that can punish this. I would dare to say that as much as I said that st4rk is seed 45 or something, and Lix is seed 26, st4rk probably would have lost a game like this against seed 100 as well. We could actually go back through the recorded games and check out how much military st4rk made. I can tell you, like, the Islands game is somewhat irrelevant because he was playing standard there and he just got surprised by Lix's unconventional play. But if you combine this game and the Arabia game, you probably see that st4rk had a combined highest military of something like 20. In this game specifically, st4rk's largest military count was 10. And yeah, on Arabia, what did he do? He went for men-at-arms, and after men-at-arms, he made, I think, 1 plumed archer and mangonels. He was less than 10 army in Arabia. He had 10 army over here at maximum. And that was where he was, and he was making that 10 army to pick up relics. That was everything. He went for a couple of spearmen, he went for a couple of eagles and monks to pick up the relics. That's all. It's crazy. He just played so greedily, and as I said, you can play this greedy on top level unless you are extremely good with defense, but Lix reacted this one very nicely. st4rk was completely unprepared for a longsword push and just got stomped by it. With that, Lix has a very easy way through st4rk here, and that somewhat surprises me because I expected a closer series, and skill-wise, st4rk should be able to match up against Lix. The problem is that the game plan from st4rk was not even close to being good.